Good evening and welcome. Thank you for being here as part of the Art, Tech and Cosmos, a program that invites us to think across art, technology, and the wider systems, human and non-human, the shape how we exist in the world. So today's session brings us into a space where reality is not understood as something fixed or given, but as something continuously formed through perception, bodies, technology, and relationships. So we are very pleased to welcome Hana Amori from Keiken. I'm not sure.
You
if I
said
pronounce
it good, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
You actually, normally people don't say it well. You actually did it.
It was luck. It was luck. So, an artistic collective whose practice moves fluidly between games, films, installations, performances, and collaborative research. Keiken's work is deeply concerned with experience, how worlds are felt from within, how technologies shape embodied perception, and how alternative ways of sensing and coexisting might be imagined and rehearsed. Rather than treating digital technology as neutral tools, Keiken approaches them as infrastructures that actively shape how we sense, relate, and imagine future. So today we're going to see and talk about Morphogenic Angels. I'm going to thank you, Hana, for being here. Hana going to make a presentation about the work. Then we're going to have a moment for perception and to play interact with the game, and then we're going to have a short Q&A as usually. So thank you, Hana, for being here. Thank you all.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So my name is Hannah, and I'm the director of Keiken. I thought maybe I should start off by saying, just reminding you guys that obviously I'm going to be talking about myself, but I am here for you. So if there's any questions or things you're thinking about, then please do ask me, because I don't need to talk about it. The only reason why I'm talking about myself is for you. And I do want to be helpful. So as mentioned, Keiken means experience in Japanese, and it kind of, we do deep world building. It's a mix between like embodied storytelling, empathetic technologies, and deep world building. And we, as mentioned, we move fluidly between games, immersive installations, and performance, and we kind of prototype the future. One thing I wanted to say was that Keiken was actually, it began 11 years ago at university. And so it started with three of us, Tani and Isabel as well. And I don't know, I just want to talk about it a little bit, because we started Keiken and it was just literally this like random day where we were like, oh, let's start a collaborative practice. And we went to Izzy's room, and it was filled with like, her room was really strange. She had like flamingo wallpaper. She didn't choose it herself, but it was a bit surreal. And we just sat there trying to connect our practices together. And we came up with the word experience. And Keiken was birthed through that, as Keiken means experience in Japanese. And it wasn't something that well, definitely for myself, I didn't really think about starting a collaborative practice. But once we did it, we started to take it very seriously. And university was amazing. Like, I definitely, come from like a very like working class background, where if I wasn't at university, I wouldn't have those resources, and I also wouldn't have that time. I'd just have to straight go into work. And I think that so much of the reason why Keiken exists still now is because we started when we were in university, and we kind of took our initiative to do things differently. And sometimes you forget when you're at uni how important your peers are, but your peers are going to, once uni is over, your peers will stay with you, especially if you make those close relationships. And it's really helpful when you're trying to create something new, because you have others to lean on, especially when you might not feel so confident about something. Making stuff with other people is really amazing and really incredible. So I thought I'd just share that a bit. So I might actually skip this one because I've got half an hour and we're going to play the game, because we've talked a bit about what Keiken is. And so first I'm going to show you a quick video of just an overview of the practice, just so you can get a very, very quick sense of it. and then... So as you can see, there's like lots of different kinds of work. So it's really, a lot of it's very embodied and performative, and there's these large scale installations. And also we've had many years working inside a game engine. And so I'm just going to give you an overview of some of the work. So this is Spirit Systems of Soft Knowing, and it is a haptic wearable womb. And this is one version of the installation. So this is the latest one shown, I guess, at FI Montreal. And basically, we decided to develop this technology, which is a haptic wearable womb. I'm trying to think of like how to briefly give you an insight of what it actually feels, the experience. So it's like 5 minutes long. It's made out of silicone, the womb, and it's glowing, and you have headphones, and so you lie on this bed, which I think I can show you here. So you lie like that, and you have headphones on, and essentially there's haptics inside. So there's this soundscape that's quite elemental, and it basically kind of feels like sound is moving 3-dimensionally inside you a bit when you're wearing it, which is a very cool experience. And it just birthed from this. It just birthed from a performance we did in like 2019 or something, where we had loads of performers wear bought wombs, like, you know, the ones you buy online. I don't know if anyone knows, but yeah, so like a bought womb. And when the performers wore it, people just went kind of a bit crazy. So we had like one performer, she just cried the whole day, and she really just felt so, I don't know, she just kept thinking of like the beginning of herself. And then we had the curator, who was like he's like very straight white guy, and then he just ran off with the womb for like 2 hours, and I couldn't find him. So people had this very like visceral, intense experience. And from it, we were like, okay, this womb is kind of crazy. What happens if we try to put something non-human into it? Would people try to care for something that's non-human because you're putting it in the first person perspective? It didn't really turn out like that. What ended up happening was most people either had they became very present inside their bodies, or if somebody went through some kind of trauma, whether that's even simply as just going to hospital a lot, maybe it is to do with pregnancy, maybe it's to do with your sense of touch. And basically they found it cathartic because they chose to put it on, so it created a safe space where they could work through those feelings, because it might ignite the emotion, but they are in a safe space to work through it. And the third one was people just start tripping. So it's very visionary, so people just start having crazy experiences. Like we had one lady who lives in Germany, but she's from Brazil, and it took her back to her home in the jungle in Brazil, and she in the rainforest, and I couldn't get her out of it for like an hour because she was just like, I'm home, I don't want to go out. And then this is just some more examples of other works. I'm going to go through them fairly quickly, but this one is like a decision-making game. And there is the map of the game that's a sculpture lying on water, and then there's an iPad that's the controller. And it was made during COVID, so we basically made it to an online game, and then we made it into this, and then we made a controller for it externally for an installation, and then we made a sculpture for it for a specific installation. And it's called For Wisdoms for Love 0.30. It was very much playing on the bubbled up feelings of the time in like 2021, where people weren't really, there was kind of a lot of heightened emotions. So it was very, the narrative was very symbolic. This is Morphogenic Angels, which we're going to play in a second. I'm going to tell you a little bit more detail into it. But it originally premiered at a theatre called How in Berlin. and there was an audience, and then there was also the people playing the game. I'm going to tell you. And then there was downstairs like a 360 video, an installation space, other game stations. If you can just see the different ways of showing the work. This is it shown again at 21st Century Museum with a glowing ball pit this time. And it also has modular seating. A lot of the reason why, like, a lot of our installations, we have a focus on accessibility and how people enter the space. I guess like the more installations you end up doing, the more you realize you just make observations of the different needs for different people. So one of the things we observed was that people like fairly low seating that's comfy, and they like it to be modular so that they can choose the way that they want to sit. Again, similar to Wombs, the glowing ball pit is weighted, so obviously it's very fun, but it also gives you a safe space. Here. And this is a public artwork we did for Helsinki Biennale, and it's called Angel Atayokai, and this one is a bit different to our other works because we were given the challenge of making a work outside, and we didn't want to make a screen-based work. When you go inside it, there's like loads of different sculptures and it's glowing. But yeah, we designed the whole thing, and there's like kind of these chimes that come in and out, and you can kind of go around it 360. So it's very beautiful. Now it's a public artwork that the Helsinki Museum and Ham acquired. Okay, now we'll talk about Morphogenic Angels. Am I even an angel anymore? So I'm going to show you a quick video of it.
Have you ever thought about how you might perceive in 1,000 years' time? What do you see? How do you feel? What do you think?
Okay, cool. You don't get to see much of it because we're going to play it. But we won't be able to play all of it in the time, so... Oh no.
Have you ever...
Why does it not let me go next? Okay, yeah, now it will. Okay, so Morphogenic Angels is set 1,000 years in the future on a different timeline to us. The reason why we chose so far ahead in the future was to go beyond like the current societal or political or like any of our realities, because no one can tell us what the world's going to be like in 1,000 years' time. So we can really try to challenge ourselves to reimagine it. And then, so what is a morphogenic angel? So morphogenic angels have been organically re-engineered with other species, so their cells get re-engineered. It really comes a lot from like Michael Levin's work on morphogenesis, and the idea is that to be able to expand their perception, because humans are like first person perceiving machines, the idea is that they have to re-engineer their cells to be more non-human, to be able to actually understand what it's like to be more than human. And this came at a time where we had done so much to the universe that they decided the only way that we're going to have like empathy or compassion for other beings is that we start to re-organically engineer ourselves to understand other species by becoming other species. But ultimately what ends up happening is when you re-engineer yourselves with other species, you become more non-human, which means each time you re-engineer yourselves, rather than dying, what happens is you become further and further away from your human childhood. So you might be like 600 years old and your childhood was 600 years ago, and you've been all these kinds of species, but because you've organically re-engineered yourselves with other species, you're also so different to other beings. So it's like this kind of ultimate sacrifice at the same time. And then you play this very, very cute character here called Yaksu. And so Yaksu means blue or green in Waztec. And that's the protagonist. And what's really nice when you're playing the game is the character's very confused and they don't know who they are, where they are. They've essentially just rebirthed or kind of gone through another morphogenesis, but it's kind of, they can't remember what's happened, so they've forgotten who they are, which puts you, the audience or the player, in the same position as the character, where you don't know what's going on and you don't know who you are. And so I'm going to give you a brief overview of the first chapter, just so that I guess it's quite nice to do it. I'm going to read it off here because I cannot memorize a very short, succinct overview of the whole game, the first chapter. So, set 1,000 years in the future, Morphogenic Angels Chapter 1 follows Yaksu, a newly evolved morphogenic angel, awakening in an unfamiliar simulation world on top of a snowy mountain. Burdened by amnesia and distortion, Yaksu begins a journey to uncover their identity and purpose in a reality that transcends the boundaries of humanity and existence. Guided by a Namtul, which is also a very cute character, mysterious and spiritual companion, Yaksu is introduced to a spiritual game designed to teach compassion and connection to the unseen. Together, they travel in a glistening castle under the orange sky, surrounded by black sand. Along the way, Yaksu encounters these beings that initially they cannot perceive clearly because their vision is clouded by judgment and fear of the unfamiliar. And then the mechanics are essentially energy mechanics, and to interact with the world they have energy mechanics. The energy game mechanics are designed to react differently depending on the beings and entities you interact with, emphasizing that energy, whether used for connection, protection or expulsion, behave in unpredictable ways. This mirrors real life dynamics where the energy we put out doesn't always yield the reaction we expect. By reflecting the unpredictable nature of life and relationships, these mechanics challenge players to adapt, embrace uncertainty, and navigate interactions with greater awareness and flexibility. Only by softening their fear and opening themselves to connection can Yaksu truly see and understand these beings, unlocking the deeper truths that carry about identity and interconnectedness. So here, let me see, what's the time? We have 3 minutes. Okay. In the 3 minutes, I'll just give you... So we've made this chapter a few years ago, and then now we're on our second chapter. And this is just the R&D we did for it, which I'm not sure... Actually, maybe I won't. I'm not going to play it, maybe. Oh. Yeah. So essentially, it was quite an interesting... Okay. Basically, what ended up happening is the game toured, and the game's still touring. It's just always somewhere. But essentially, Natsumi Wada, a coder, so she's a child of deaf adults, and she's a researcher and a designer herself. And she saw Morphogenic Angels and was like, oh, Yaksu, that's me. And she brought her community of other deaf and blind, most of them are like designers or game designers and other coders, to come to London, and we tried to translate Morphogenic Angels through like adventure, touch, play. You know, it was quite a big thing to do because we're trying to translate quite complex ideas and thoughts whilst also learning how to communicate to people who have different sensory experiences to us. So it really has been like quite a magical journey. And also like a very complex journey. And where we are now is we've been building the characters for the next chapter, which they've created their own Morphogenic Angels, which we're going to build into the world, and lots of their stories and personhoods are incorporated into it. And then, so that's kind of the next stage where we are at, which we have made this very cute character, but I don't think I have an image on this deck. and you can just, the last thing is just you can see how big the world will be. So the idea is that you keep world building more and more and more. After having a lot of feedback from people playing the game, most people just want to know more about the world and they want to go and dive in it. But the complication is that it's very hard making games and it takes a very long time and it takes a lot of resources. So where we're at now is we've done the demo and then we've got funding to make the next chapter, which is good. So yeah, now we're going to play the game.
So thank you, Hana, for the experience, and we're going to have a brief Q and A. I'm going to open a little bit the conversation, and then I'll pass to the audience. About everything that you said and about the experience. It's hard for me to say the game. The experience, it's more interesting than saying the game. So what do you think it's the responsibility and the role of artists and designers that they have, say they are about not just representing futures, but actively prototyping them. So do you think about that when you are doing your projects, when you are doing something like this, or?
There's definitely a point when we started to understand how to. So I guess like when we're thinking about the future, there was a point when we started to like develop our own technologies, and even within the game engine, there was a point where like, oh, you know, if the technology doesn't serve us, let's just make it. And like that definitely gave us a lot of empowerment. I also think that, you know, like all these tools, or even now AI, they're like agents. I guess maybe I wouldn't say things are like human centered. So it's not for just humans. It's for like the universe. Like we're like stewards, I guess, of the universe. But I think there's always like a responsibility of there's always a responsibility of just if the technology you shouldn't let the technology use you. That's really important. And you shouldn't let like an agent like use you, but at the same time you need to it is challenging to invent technologies, and also the implication of like the artists inventing their own technologies. I think there's one thing like conceptualizing a new technology or prototyping a technology to like making a technology that's accessible to others. Like they're all completely different layers. So it really depends on the person eventually, but I think they're all layers that are really important to be considering, because if we don't do things and make things different, then things aren't going to change, are they? So it's everybody's responsibility, no matter whether you're artist or not.
Yeah, totally. I agree. But do you feel that you are, in a way, not only imagine but building a decent future, or not that distant, like prototyping a possible future reality, because we are way above technology in this case.
But a lot of the technologies that we're like speculating or like imagining are based off like existing like scientists who are like, for example, the whole concept is from morphogenesis. Morphogenesis is something that has been happening for a while, and it has like a ton of funding for. So it is a technology that's in the early stages of development, but for different things. So for example, you organically re-engineer cells to maybe stop a kind of disease from happening, but maybe you do it before birth. So a lot of it will start off very medical, but for example, another use could be that if you like use morphogenesis to if you're like hybriding other species, it can also allow you to understand, like you basically create more variables of different kinds of intelligence, which might, like, for example, help you understand alien intelligence, like things like that. So there's like there are so many possibilities. Like some people talk about how like even just like architecture could regrow through like organic re-engineering. So it is an existing technology. It's just not there yet. And also people might not decide to organically re-engineer themselves. I don't know.
Yeah, You're totally right. So I'm going to open the conversation to the audience. So we have a question there. Do we have a? Yeah, thank you. We have a microphone.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay. I just want to say that I really like the game and also the sound design in it. I just wanted to ask why Spanish?
Oh, so the reason, so it's a specific dialect to Spanish, but the reason why was because I guess the first thing we wanted to have it so that there was different languages to talk about, like not being able to communicating through different, I guess, ways of understanding. But also Tani, who's also made this, she is half Mexican, and it's her parents speaking and her speaking, and it's their it's specifically their dialect from Veracruz in Mexico. So we just always use our own cultural references throughout the whole game, yeah, and all the other works.
And have you thought on like not a broken Spanish? Like because I'm a Spanish speaker, so I kind of heard some broken words. So it's just a matter of asking if like as it is in English, like it's proper English, proper like pronunciation of words in Spanish, or
The reason why is because it's the dialect from where Tani's from, which is, I guess, like, so like even some of the characters, so like Yaksu and Namtul, they're from like the like Waztec, which is like a different language, but it's a spoken language that's like dying. But like Tani's family are like, she's part like indigenous Mexican as well. So I think the reason why it's broken is because the choice was to basically to use like, rather than using I guess Spanish that's like more like universal Spanish, there was a purpose to use it because it comes from, I guess, her ancestors. And I think because we're always together, we're always talking about this amongst each other, if that makes sense. So we just like incorporated it into the game. But it's interesting that you noticed that.
no, yeah, and also thank you for bringing Spanish into a video game because it's not that usually. So it was really nice to see my language represented
so
there.
nice.
Other. Yeah.
Hello. Still in the topic of language, actually. Also later, soon after in the game, they changed to like download another language, which I don't remember the name of. But then, thank you.
Yeah.
People with better memory than me. But then they're speaking in English.
Yes.
What was the decision behind that? Why didn't you use recordings of the language? Like, and why that language in particular instead of another one?
The reason why we changed it to English was because, so we pretended like, oh, in the future that maybe like English is not even named the word English essentially, and it's not used. So we just called it like Watal. But then at the same time, because this shows in so many different countries across the world, it's just helpful to have it in English because it just makes it more accessible. So we brought it back to English for half the game to like, I guess because of more for accessibility, because it's quite hard. Like we can't just change like voice language for the whole of the game because it's really hard to do. So for example, our subtitling system, we had to build our own subtitling system to make it so it wasn't like, it's not so simple as like doing like say in Premiere and you're doing a video recording, you have the subtitling, it's already like set for you to be able to do it. Or like now it's much easier with a lot of like AI softwares, whereas this we had to like hard program it in, if that makes sense.
I guess this goes more towards the second chapter. This being a game much related to understanding oneself and the world around them. I wanted to pick on something that was briefly mentioned about the second chapter and the involvement of the blind and deaf community. How do you think, or do you think at all, that interaction with the blind and the deaf changed the overall history of the game in the direction you want to take with it?
So how we're doing the next chapter is so much the characters and the stories and the experiences are, a lot of it relates to these people and their worlds. And I guess like I'm also coming from the perspective of it's not just deaf and blind people or carers or the coders. It's also the specific people I know and their world and how and their culture and like everything about them. It's like going into their like psyche, I guess. So it's that, I guess, like it really has changed everything in that sense. But in another sense, so much of the game is about belonging. So much of it's about not being able to, how do you communicate? It's about like, also there's a big sense of like loneliness. And so a lot of the topics, when we did the R&D, were all the topics that appeared already in the game, if that makes sense. And now I can also understand why Natsumi she really felt so compelled to bring everyone to us. So yeah, I think, yeah, it's kind of hybrid, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Hi. While we were playing, at some point, it said that there was 2 ways of doing something. And I wanted to know what would have been the second way, I guess.
Yeah, so if you manage to either shield yourself or expel your energy onto those little naughty, cheeky energies that move around, and you manage to clear all of them, what happens is there's like an energy that like brings you back and it pushes you back. So it's like 2 ways of doing it. But then I think, I can't remember what happens. It gets more and more intense the more times you go through it. And the world slightly changes as even though it's the same place. So it starts to get, it's almost like, you know, when you're in your head and you're like, say like somebody does something really annoying and you have it in your head and you keep replaying it over your head and you start actually going get a bit insane in yourself with your own narrative that you have in your head. It kind of does that, if that makes sense. The more that you go through it again and again and again.
And another language question is at some point when we connect to something, it speaks in Japanese, I think.
Yeah.
And without that like connection happening like it did with the other character, why is that?
So it's because I'm half Japanese. So I think we just it's called Morphogenic Angels Chapter 1. It's omoyari, and omoyari means compassion. So there was like a bit of a thread, but essentially when we went to 21st Century Museum, which is in Japan, and we had to show this at the museum, we realized basically that we should make the instructions spoken in Japanese to make it easier, because that's easier for us to edit into the game. And the person who did the sound recording just had a really great voice, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to put yours into this bit because you sound so cute. So that was kind of the decision. But really the kind of wider decision, obviously, is to play on the different perspectives and different backgrounds. And I think that naturally ends up happening because when you're working with other people, you're sharing your cultures. And obviously being like, I guess, diaspora, you often don't have... You might not have somebody else who is from the same culture of you, so you're kind of always, I guess, like internally, we're always just hybriding with one another and sharing and wanting to include a part of our cultural perspective into it.
Okay, another final question. Anyone? From beside. So I have a brief one. So to end it. So if you can, it's pretty obvious that this is about world building, and the question is if you can talk a little bit what means for you this idea of world building instead of tell a story or instead of storytelling, because it's So that's.
So I guess world building's for me, I love world building so much. I think that it's like, it's not just about creating a story, as you said. It's about changing the laws, the structures, trying to reimagine reality or subvert reality in new ways. Because even the act of like world building is like it could be super radical. So for example, like when we world build with our friends, we can build a world away from society that we can believe in together, and then this can create a safe space. But then also it's really amazing because it allows you to see the world differently. I think it's more immersive. It can go in more directions. World building is very good also for collaboration because it actually allows space for multiple perspectives to come in as well. And I think world building's powerful, but also now we have a lot more tools, such as like, Unreal Engine is like a really good example. It's like you can now make games more accessibly, and you can actually make a world, and you can go in different directions. You can, it's not about it being like a film and it's 50 minutes long and then it's going to exist and then it detaches from everything. You can live inside it. It's completely different. It's like, I think as a medium, it's super interesting. Like, for example, like now, like Elden Ring's being made into a film, and it's like, it's all this kind of like immersivity into this other place that I think's so powerful. But it's also very powerful, I think. I think it's also super powerful, just the act of trying to see the world differently, but really trying to reimagine everything, not just a story, reimagine, new, like, ways of the world, like laws and structures of the world existing.
Great. So when can we expect the presentation of the chapter 2?
Probably the end of the year we'll finish
This
it.
year?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Right. Okay. So thank you, Anna. Thank you for the experience. Thank you, everyone. See you next week.
Yay.